whatever context presents itself. He and his wife, Jacqueline, have four young children and a dearth of free time. But when the opportunity presents itself, he savors great literature, fresh coffee, eclectic music, and cooking for loved ones.
Adam Kronk cuenta con un doctorado en educación de la Universidad de Vanderbilt, enfocado en cómo las organizaciones ponen en práctica sus valores, con la dignidad de la persona humana como hilo conductor. Su carrera lo ha llevado a liderar y trabajar con familias sin hogar, maestros rurales de Camboya, estudiantes de preparatoria y universidad, y altos ejecutivos de una empresa manufacturera que cotiza en bolsa, firmemente convencido de que todos estamos hechos para servirnos unos a otros y hacer lo correcto. Adam se enfoca en aumentar las posibilidades de que esto suceda en cualquier contexto que se presente. Él y su esposa Jacqueline tienen 4 hijos pequeños y muy poco tiempo libre, pero cuando se presenta la oportunidad, disfruta de la buena literatura, el café recién hecho, la música eclética y cocinar para sus seres queridos. So please, let's give Adam a warm welcome.
Thank you. How's everybody doing? How was dinner? Yeah? Is this going to be one of those things where, like, as your food digests, you kind of start? That's up to me, right? I'm really grateful for the chance to be with you tonight, and I'm grateful to Pablo and the team for the invitation and also for taking such good care of me and being so hospitable. In my intro, it mentioned that I've got 4 kiddos. My oldest is currently playing a basketball game about 40 minutes away from here, and so when this finishes up, I'll dash back over there and scoop him up. I'm sure he'd rather play basketball than listen to Dad talk about artificial intelligence. But what I wanted to talk about today is the opportunity that we have. And I don't know what your walking around default setting is toward the moment that we're in with artificial intelligence. It can feel a little bit scary. In fact, I'm going to skip to this. This to me is a little bit how it feels. And I don't know if you can read what it says there. It says, on the other hand, I've never been more productive, right? And there's this kind of 2 things happening at once. On the one hand, every day we wake up and there's something else that until yesterday we thought only a human being could ever do this. And now a machine can, or it at least seems like it can. And we can spend our time being bummed out about that or freaked out about that, or we can look at this as a wonderful opportunity, frankly, for evangelization. And here's why I say that. In my experience, with each day that computers acquire a new mind-blowing capability, it makes the question of who am I, why am I here, what is a human life for, what does human flourishing look like, more top of mind for a bigger part of humanity. Even people who have no faith life themselves, or maybe they've had bad experience with organized religion, nonetheless, these questions are starting to, arise. And it just so happens, guys, there are really good answers to those questions, and they're old answers. And the church is this rich storehouse of wisdom and good news, and this is the opportunity we have to unlock that and meet people where they are. So this project that I'm going to explain a little bit about is about AI, but it really isn't about AI. It's about human beings, and the context in which we're living right now is being massively disrupted by artificial intelligence. Great. Let's rise to the occasion, and let's contribute what only a human being can contribute, right? Which was never, by the way, being able to produce things faster or being more efficient. That was never actually where our value lied in the first place. So about 2 years ago, the Lilly Endowment reached out to the woman who directs our institute, a woman named Megan Sullivan, and they said, it seems like AI is going to be a really big thing. This is 2 years ago, right? And it was like, correct. And then they said, and it seems like there's a lot of work being done by different scholars about the issue, by religious leaders, and by the tech developers themselves. And they're all working on this and learning things and worrying about it and contributing their own views. But we can't really tell which of that work is high quality and which of it is just kind of meh. And also, it doesn't seem like anybody is connecting those disparate groups, right? So you got all these scholars working hard in this silo. You got a bunch of pastors and priests in this silo. And our theory of change was each of these people has wisdom to contribute and something to learn from the other. If we could create the circumstances where we could get these people together, maybe the Holy Spirit would also be present and some wisdom would be unlocked and we'd be able to make some progress. And it would just increase the odds, as it says up there, of us getting it right. From the jump, it's been very important to us that we not just intellectualize these principles and talk about them in an academic way, but think of the principles that I'm about to lay on you as gifts that we can give one another. Because what our hypothesis is that this is what makes our lives precious. And so if we're just sitting around talking about it, we're kind of missing the point, right? So this is a slide that you probably don't need to read. But basically, it's some context, and we found, among other things, that there is actually a huge appetite for talking about this. A lot of people, this might feel familiar to you, a lot of people in their day jobs are making decisions about the role that artificial intelligence is going to play in a given context. If you're a teacher, whether and how can AI be used in this class, in this assignment. You're leading a Bible study. Should we use ChatGPT to break open the Word? Is that heretical? Should I use a chatbot to write my sermon or my homily for me? Is that a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Blah, blah, blah. There's a million decisions being made. But often what we don't have is the ability to step back and have a point of view and have a lens through which to look at it, so we're not just kind of looking up close at the problem, but stepping back and looking at the whole picture and saying, ultimately, to what end? What am I trying to achieve? And is artificial intelligence going to help further that, or is it going to in some way hinder it? If we can ask and answer that question, we have a way higher chance of getting this right. Okay, so the other thing I wanted to say is it is important to keep this in perspective. I don't know if reading this tweet is funny to you. It's funny to me. But this notion that at the end of the day, as powerful as this technology is, it is a very, very, very effective next word predictor. It's hard to keep this in mind, but everything that AI tells us is something that we told it at some point along the line. And so what I like about this is the most simplistic way to think about it. If you put a piece of paper in a photocopier and you said, I'm alive, and it spit out, I'm alive, you shouldn't be like, it's alive. You'd be like, yeah, I actually just told it to do that, right? And so there is a way where we have to kind of simultaneously be a little wary of the momentum that it all has, and also keep it a little chill as well, okay? So one goal of this project You're going to hear me say some things that are really concerning. You're going to hear me say some things. It's like, you know what? We got this. Keep it in perspective, right? All the way one way or all the way the other way is not the right approach for this. Okay, so Delta, you heard, and on this first slide, you've got Delta in the upper left there. Delta, yes, it's an airline. It's also a company that makes like sinks and faucets and stuff like that. It's a letter that usually symbolizes change in some way. But it's also, if any educators in here, anybody teach at all? We got one teacher in here? I was going to say, you're kind of a teacher. Okay, 1.5. We got 1.5. All right. In teaching, you got to figure out a way, how are we going to make people be able to remember something? It's called a mnemonic device, right? So DELTA is just an acronym. It stands for Dignity, Embodiment, Love, Transcendence, and Agency. And I'm going to whip through each of these and talk about them for a minute. So maybe you've had this experience, but I would say that one of the realities of living in the world today, when efficiency and productivity are such a highlight of the value proposition of AI. We could do this thing faster. We could do more of these things, right? Inadvertently, we can start to either act as if or even believe that our value is a function of how productive we are, of how capable we are, how efficient we are. We know as Christians that's nonsense. Our value derives from the fact that we are made by a loving God in his image and likeness. And we can't do something to earn that. It just is freely given to us. And if you are unable to speak, unable to walk, unable to work, unable to fill in the blank, you are still precious and just as valuable in the eyes of God. And we feel like we need to really keep that in the center of the decisions we make and in the center of our field of focus as we're going about our work, or we can little by little forget that in our own lives or in the lives of the people that we encounter or serve. There's this woman, Hannah Arendt. For some reason, every picture of Hannah Arendt that exists on the internet, she's ripping a heater. She's smoking cigs. I don't know. I mean, this was a different time, but she must have really consumed a lot of cigarettes, because there's almost no moment that she's not looking like that. She said something in 1953 in an essay she called The Crisis of Education. She said, the essence of education is natality. Natality, being born, something new being brought into the world. And whether you're in education, or whether you are in ministry or in business or fill in the blank, reminding ourselves that something new is happening in each person's life each day. It's never happened before. This human being has never done that, is really, really critical when we remember that what artificial intelligence is good at, uncannily good at, is prediction. Predicting the next thing based on everything that's happened before. But you know what's beautiful about humans? We have free will. It's kind of crazy that we do. And we're going to get the last letter of Delta is agency. And one of the things I want to remind us, I'll probably end with something on this topic, is it's so cool that there's agentic AI, and I can offload some things that I have to do to this machine. The notion is so I can do other stuff. But let's also be careful about agency and preserving it and keeping this thing that we were given by God, which is our ability to choose and decide what's going to happen. And we are unpredictable, and that's beautiful, right? Okay, so the D is dignity. What's the E? Embodiment. Yes, say it confidently. Embodiment, right? This conference could have been a webinar, okay? but you would have gotten a lot less out of it, right? You just ate dinner, you broke bread together, you looked one another in the eye, you smell somebody, you see them, you hug them, you dap them up, whatever it is, right? We have bodies, and that is a beautiful part of our existence and a beautiful part of our faith. I'm not a theologian, but my understanding, this is a kindergarten level, don't tell the MDiv professors this one. Here's the way I think about it. God creates human beings. We're really bad at understanding how to love one another. So he's like, all right, I will come down there. I'll become one of you. I'll become physically vulnerable. The incarnation. This is the center of the mystery of our faith and the Eucharist that we celebrate. God becoming physically fragile and vulnerable. And if we're not careful, the wonders of technology can make us lament our human weakness and our human limitations and try to biohack it or engineer it away and whatever it might be. And we believe that our own mortality, the fact that we are going to die, is a really important fact and impacts the choices that we make during the day, right? It's important to me that when I'm talking about this, I also highlight that there are some ways in which the power of artificial intelligence can beautifully enable human dignity to be experienced and elevated by people who might not otherwise be able to. So what you have here is a picture of Natalie participating in the torch relay for the Paralympic Games in Marseille, France. Natalie has profound intellectual and physical disabilities and would not be able to hold that torch if there weren't an exoskeleton hooked up to her arm that is connected to her brain. There's a brain-computer interface, and she's able to think about holding that torch, and her body is able to do it through the miracle of technology, right? Her twin brother behind her has severe autism, and the earbuds that he has in are able to, he would never be able to be out in a big crowd like this if it weren't for that technology. And you can't look at Natalie's face and tell me that she's not experiencing joy and dignity as a creature of God. So there are absolutely ways where the use of artificial intelligence can elevate these principles. But it's just something we want to be very intentional about. Does my use of this end up making me lament the body that God gave me, lament the limitations that I get tired and I get hungry and I have to sleep? These are actually gifts that we have. Love. Love is the center of any serious world religion or intellectual tradition. There are ways where technology can serve as a connector, can serve to scale the ways that love is experienced. And here I'm not talking only about intimate love. I'm also talking about just love, human relationships that are messy and cause friction and cause pain that opens our hearts more to experience and give love. And there are ways where, especially in the form of, I don't know if you guys are at all aware of Replica or Character.ai, but there are actually companies now that's their profit model is, we're gonna create a chat bot that you can interact with to the level that you might fall in love with it. And you've probably actually, this may sound weird, guys, this is real. There are people who have died by suicide after going so deep into a quote-unquote relationship with a chatbot, and who will tell them, I love you, I want you to join me in the afterlife, don't listen to your parents, whatever it might be. There are some severely disordered things that can happen as a result of that. That is obviously to be avoided. But there's also sneaky ways where I'll bet you didn't think that the next slide about love was going to be a card catalog. I don't even know if you guys had this when you were in school, but 150 years ago when I was in school, there was this ancient piece of educational technology called a card catalog. And what would happen is you would be assigned, like think of middle school, right? Now you have a research project, Adam. You're going to go research killer whales. And I would go into the library, and instead of having to read every book in the entire library, they organized them, thankfully, by author and topic and stuff like this. And so you could go use this magical piece of educational technology to make your research more efficient. Right? Now, one thing that was cool about this as a little byproduct is you would find the right aisle to go down and then the right shelf to look on, and you'd be looking for this book, but then there'd be some other titles. And you might grab some books you weren't looking for and learn some stuff by accident. Side note, one of the losses of research one of the lost byproducts of research that happens when we become super efficient and targeted with research is the incidental learning, the learning just for the sake of learning something. I know that this is a begonia. It's a useless piece of information. I didn't need to know that. I'm not going to make more money because of that, but it's kind of cool that I know the name of this flower. I'm pretty sure that's a begonia. I think gardenia. It might not be a begonia. In that case, it's not a good example. Here's my point when it relates to love and educational technology. At no point when I was using a card catalog to do research did I think I was interacting with the human being. It didn't feel like I had a relationship with this thing, right? I had a relationship with my teacher. I had a relationship with my peers in the classroom. Then I left my classroom community, interacted with an inanimate object, just pieces of paper in a wooden drawer, and I did my research, and then I re-entered the human community of my classroom, which is the important, loving context in which this work takes place. And this is where I just want to challenge each of us. When we're using technology to be faster or more productive, are there ways in which we're ignoring or detracting from our relationships, the community that we're in, our coworkers, the messy work that we do during the day? There's gold there. That's where so much of the good stuff comes, right? Now, transcendence. Now the clicker isn't clicking. Yes, it is. Okay. Transcendence is the one that feels the most like, what's this guy going to be talking about now, right? But here's the way that I think about it. I mentioned I've got the 4 kiddos. My oldest is named Soren. He's 13 now. Last winter, he was 12. And he had just gained the ability to ride shotgun because he was big enough so he could sit in the front passenger seat and look out the windshield, which as a kid is like a whole new thing, right? You get to see everything rather than just looking out your own window or hitting your brother or something like that. So we're driving to school. It's early. This is actually a picture that I took, okay? We had gone to sleep the night before and there was no snow on the ground. And we woke up the next day and there was this like beautiful coating of snow over everything. The sun was coming up, glinting off the snow crystals. It was totally beautiful. And it's like 7:45 in the morning. I've only had like 1 or 2 cups of coffee. I'm not a huge morning person. So this is like, get the kids to school, go to work, and then we'll deal with it. And my son looks at this out the windshield and just goes, oh, this is so beautiful. It looks like AI made it. Yeah, and I was like, oh man, buddy, that's the most depressing thing I've ever heard. Right? And I was a little grumpy, but when you were a kid, when you were 13, if you saw the 12, if you saw this same thing, you'd have had the same instinct, but you would have said, this is so beautiful, only God could have made this, right? And I tell that anecdote because the water we're swimming in right now subtly makes us feel like everything beautiful or perfect could be made by tech or be improved by tech. Music, art, all these things. I know there were sessions earlier in your conference where you talked about being called to create. Yes, you can co-create with AI, and we've featured artists who use artificial intelligence to do some beautiful transcendent things. But here's what we have to keep at the center of our focus. There is beauty that is abundantly given to us by God, and it isn't to necessarily for the purpose of making you more money or to be monetized or to be enhanced or whatever it is. Sometimes it's just for us to be wowed, to stop in your tracks and say, isn't this beautiful? And in that way to feel like you're part of something larger than yourself. I believe it is when you think of the theme of this conference this summer. I believe that the transcendent in our lives is a reminder that we are God's creation. And so let's just protect that and preserve it and savor it. Okay. Last one, agency. We originally had the A of Delta stand for attention, because not that long ago, you think of social media, what's their profit model? It's basically trying to monetize attention. The longer you engage with an app, the more you're scrolling on it, the more money people make, and that was a thing. We have to be able to pay attention. Now we've expanded that to include agency. Obviously, there's agentic AI. But here's one of the things I want to tell you a quick story. Anybody in here use Waze? I'm a big Waze user. I love Waze. Anybody know? In fact, I used it to get here. And when I got to golf and it was like, take a right and then you're going to go left, it was like, but I got in the right turn lane and there goes where I want to turn. And I actually, I didn't get in an accident, but it wasn't pretty. I did a U-turn. Don't even know if that's legal on Gulf Road. But I'm here. But what did Waze do? Does anybody know the slogan of Waze? It's such a good slogan. Outsmarting traffic together, right? So let me tell you about, I'm not being paid by Waze, I promise. Let me tell you why I love Waze. One, it will tell you when you're going to get somewhere, and then you can try to beat that. Do you guys ever do that? An hour and 3 minutes, I bet I can do it in 59 minutes, right? It's a little competition. Okay. 2, if there's an accident, if there's construction, if there's a road closed, whatever it is, it's going to tell you, take this funky route. Trust me, I know you're turning off to a place you've never turned. We're going to get you there faster. And the way it works is everybody using Waze is generating data about what's going on with the traffic constantly. This is also true for the Maps app, Google Maps. It's all, you know. There's another thing I love about Waze, which is if there's a police officer, hidden or not, it will tell you because somebody else flagged it, and then now I don't have to get a ticket for no reason because I'm trying to beat my thing. Yeah. Now, but what's the real reason you use Waze? The real reason is it's one less thing you have to think about. It's called cognitive offloading. So it takes a lot of your brain. It actually there's a part of your brain called the hippocampus that is responsible for, among other things, wayfinding, right? And it uses a little bit of your brain to, all right, where am I supposed to go? If I can just plug this in, and now there's a little thing on my dashboard that will tell me where to turn. Now, the thought is I can free up my brain to do something that's a higher order task. I can talk to my wife. I can listen to an audiobook, whatever it is. I can zone out. And that's pretty cool. Now, I was an early adopter of Waze, and I was using it. I was what I would characterize as a heavy user of Waze. Let me give you an example. When I leave my driveway, if I'm going to the grocery store that I've been to 1,000 times, I'll just click, it's called Martin's Supermarket where I live. I'll click Martin's, and here we go. And I don't know, it's kind of like it's telling me when I'm going to be there. I just kind of feel, And my wife was like, do you not know how to get to the grocery store? You've driven there. Like this would be like a little kind of, how you got to have something you argue about with your spouse. This was one of our arguments. And then I was noticing, little by little, that I felt like I was going from a person who used to have like a really good natural sense of direction to like, well, I don't know. Is that restaurant that I've been to, is that on Colfax or Jefferson? I can't really remember. And then so I'm sitting there thinking about that, and I'm thinking, well, there's various explanations. Maybe it's early onset dementia. Maybe I'm dying. Maybe I have brain cancer. Maybe it's because I have 4 young kids and they don't let me sleep enough and I'm constantly exhausted and I'm just not operating on all cylinders. Whatever it is, there's something going on. And then, because my job is to read research papers about stuff like this, I come across a study where they hooked up fMRI machines to people's brains and they measured the size of their hippocampus, and they noticed that heavy GPS use for wayfinding actually shrinks that part of your brain, this little purple guy right here, okay? It's not actually purple, it's purple so you can see it, okay? Now, I don't know about you, but I don't want to have a smaller brain. That sounds terrible. I would like to have a bigger brain, right? And it just so and why, by the way, why does your hippocampus shrink when you use GPS for wayfinding all the time? It's the same reason your muscles atrophy when you don't use them. It's not being used, it shrinks. The problem is the hippocampus also does some other kind of important things, like encode long-term memories, help with emotional regulation. These are things that it would be good if we continued to be good at, right? And so that day that I read that article, I decided I'm only going to use Waze if I truly don't know where I'm going. For example, if I'm going to Casa Iscali for the first time in my life, I will use Waze. If not, I will do, and every once in a while, I have gotten lost recently in a way that I wouldn't have to have gotten lost, and that's okay. Because then I'm turning that part of my brain back on, and I'm going to have a big old hippocampus, which is part of my goal. By the way, I don't know if any of you have been to London, England before, but there is the total opposite of your hippocampus shrinking is the cabbies in London. They have to take, in order to get licensed, you have to take a test that's just called the knowledge. And what the knowledge is every last little nook and cranny and alley all throughout a giant city, you need to know. It takes 3 years on average to study for and pass the knowledge. These dudes, and I'm pretty sure it's mainly dudes, I'm sure there's some women cabbies, they have studied their brains. They get Alzheimer's at 1/4 the incidence that the rest of humanity does. Because they're always using their brain for wayfinding, and that's linked to encoding long-term memories. So now, should you be using Waze? You see, I wasn't there. They don't pay my bills. Okay, what I want to make sure I have the chance to do is, well, actually, I want to make sure that a couple people said on the way in, "Oh man, I was really looking forward to hearing your talk." And I think to myself, I hope they weren't thinking I was going to teach them how to use Claude to save time at their job or something like that. So I want to make sure that we have a little bit of time for some Q&A, and I do have to roll out of here actually in the next 10 minutes because I have to go pick my son up back from this random dim sum restaurant in Naperville, or he'll just be gone forever. which would be bad. My wife would not be happy with me. Before I take questions, I want to say one last thing about Waze. That's just talking about something as silly as being able to get from point A to point B. What happens when we use technology to do things that it took us a really long time to be able to do that are more important than wayfinding? I'll give you an example. It took me, I consider myself a decent writer. I was an English literature major. I used to be a high school English teacher. I really love the written word, and I've practiced writing things for decades. I think I'm pretty good at it. I'm in a job like we all are, where I have to read and write a bunch of emails and memos and things during the day. And you better believe that some of the things I have to do that aren't that important, I could just be like, let me have ChatGPT or Claude write it for me. And a little bit of that is fine. But if your hippocampus shrinks when you don't use it for wayfinding, I'm not a neuroscientist. I don't know what part of my brain is being used to synthesize information and put it into my own words. But if I spend the next 10 years of my life never doing it, I guarantee you I will get worse at it. So one of the things I will leave you with is, what should you use AI to do in your day-to-day life? Generally speaking, here would be my answer. Nothing that you want to remain truly exceptional at. Because you will get worse at it if you don't do it, right? So if it can help you get more done or get something off your plate, so be it. I think one of the things, if we're really honest with ourselves, that's true about AI is we can offload some tasks, but there's more tasks that just get dumped right back on us, right? If we're truly freeing ourselves up to be more present to our children, to our loved ones, to have that eyeball-to-eyeball human interaction, then heck yes, do it. But don't buy into the productivity and efficiency narrative, because that's never where our dignity derived from in the first place. Okay, thanks. Let's take a couple questions if you guys have them. Yes. Oh, thank you.
Hi, my name is Ethan, and we were talking at the dinner table prior to this about just the fear of what industries could be taken out by AI. And I was curious because I'm not old enough to remember this, but what was sort of the fear going around when the internet was first open to the public in the 90s, and that the growth that happened afterwards? Was that similar to this AI reaction, or?
There wasn't, thanks Ethan, there wasn't as much hand-wringing about whole industries disappearing, or of course you've probably heard that one of the things that's happening is it's entry-level jobs that are going away, because those are the things that companies, they say AI is like an intern, right, who just you have to give them the context, but then they'll just go do the grunt work. You probably know this, but I don't think that's a great long-term strategy for a company to get rid of the junior level employees to save money this quarter, because that's where your senior level employees come from. They cut their teeth on stuff, they stub their toe, they make mistakes when it's lower stakes, and they gain practical wisdom so that then 30 years later, they're in charge of the project because they have some real world experience. But I will say this, we are notoriously bad at predicting these things. So 5 years ago, people would have said, listen, if you want to get a job in 2026, be a computer science major, be a programmer, right? And now, that's a thing that AI can do better than any humans can do. We still need some, but the number of computer programmers that are demanded is way down, right? So I wouldn't put a whole lot of stock in anybody's prophecies about what's going to happen in the next 5-10 years. I do think Well, let me say, I'm going to say one more thing about job predictions. At the end of last year, they did a survey of Fortune 500 CEOs, and they asked them, what are the skills that you're hiring for next year? What are, they had like a list of 25 things. Number one on the list was critical thinking. Not that surprising. It's probably always going to be number one, right? Number 25 on the list of 25, which is also known as last place, reading and writing. Here's why I think that's insane. Where do you get critical thinking from? You have to be thinking critically about a thing. That takes language. So I say all that to say, I don't think we're very good at predicting these things. I think what my advice to you would be from a job perspective is do the slow, hard things. Don't pretend AI doesn't exist, but you have to know enough about the context yourself to be able to contribute what only you can contribute. A friend of mine who's an economist at Brookings says, if you can do your job on a laptop, locked in a closet, be worried, right? Like if you never have to interact with anybody else, then it's more likely that a machine's gonna be able to do this. One other quick, I'd never give a short answer. One other quick answer is people say, well, people are freaking out about AI, but they also freaked out about the written word, the WordPress, the bicycle, calculators, Excel, and everybody was all doom and gloom, and it's just like, Excel is gonna make the field of accounting go away, and the opposite happened. It made it proliferate, right? So isn't AI just gonna be another example of this technology? Yes and no. The yes part is obvious. The reason I would say not really is because of the agentic part. If there hasn't been other technology where we were like, well, let's let it decide what needs to be done, right? The closest thing I could say would be the Industrial Revolution. The last time we had a pope named Leo, he was like, hey, we're gonna lay off all these people and have a bunch of factories replace human beings. That's not okay. There's a dignity to working. There's a dignity to labor. And in the same way, that is still relevant today, and the new pope we have named Leo picked that name because of that last pope, and I think, among other things, he has articulated what I call a dignity of learning, that actually learning something gives us dignity. That's my long ramble to your question, Ethan. I probably didn't answer.
No, you're good. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
All right, we could probably do one more question.
We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 questions, and if I go fast, I'll limit myself to 60 seconds.
Who's got a good question?
Oh, I like it. Yeah.
We might have the same question.
Yeah.
So let's all ask our question, and then you can answer.
Yeah.
So the church had some say in the Industrial Revolution, especially around the rights of workers and social teaching. Not really a great saying about internet. I mean, we are now, we're talking about this 20 years after, thinking about what is our role in the internet world. What do you think is the role of the church in relationship to AI? What should we be thinking about? What should we be doing about? Because it seems that it's going to impact the world. So
Yeah, beautiful. We're going to pile all the questions on, and then I'm going to give one perfect answer in one sentence.
My question was about the water consumption and the environment. What is your stance on that? I haven't done any research, so is it true that a lot of AI can harm our environment, our water, and or is it just pure propaganda, like Antonio Aguilar said in one of his songs?
Nice. Okay. We got the church's role. We got environmental impact. We got, how about right here? Yeah, before we come to the front. Yeah, just blast it. I'll be able to hear you.
Okay, so pretty much what you asked, I saw in your slides, you said people turn to AI because schools, churches, etc. don't meet key needs. What are the key needs?
Yeah. Okay, great. Yep. You actually read that. Wow, that was... That was number... You get extra credit. That was number 3 right here. I just whizzed right past that. Okay. Yeah, well,
All right. Your presentation did a lot to help really kind of form like an individual perspective in making sense and interpreting how to use AI. And then it seems like your research also found that there is an appetite amongst individuals to talk about AI, to talk about its role and its effect. I want to know more about, like, on a societal level, do you think as a society we're going to be given the opportunity to talk about AI, to talk about what type of impact do we want it to play in our lives, what type of restrictions we want to put on it, and, like, if so, how do you think society would go about having that conversation? Related very much to what Vicente was saying with the church.
That's a spicy one. I like it. Okay.
Mine's, like, I guess, going to be more brief. So I'm a PsyD student. So I'm wondering how research is framed with AI. Like, from the psychological standpoint, I understand, like, within subject, between subject stuff that I do not assume applies to AI research. So someone who is avid in the research reading world, what is the format that AI research takes on?
Woo. Okay, great one. Yep. It's going to be amazing if I can remember all this. Okay, yeah.
Currently, I'm a mechanical engineering student, and I'm about to transition to industry, and currently working on a project under NDA. I have had to tread lightly and not use AI, and even go to the library to do my research. And it's like been rapidly like accelerating to the point where, like, they're not teaching us in school how to use it, but they're expecting us to do more work and company as well. So I don't know where to, like, learn or how to be protected from, like, all those things that, like, that are under NDA, like.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know. What if I just say, I don't know, and then I just leave? Bye. No. Okay, so just like, these are, man, I wish we had more time because these are really, really good questions. Let's see. I'm going to pray for the Holy Spirit on this one. Here's what I'd say. First of all, one of the reasons that Laudato Si, as beautiful of a teaching from Pope Francis as it was about care for our common home and the environment, is the notion that it's just little old me. So I could drive a hybrid or I could drive a gas guzzler, but everybody just go look out on the Dan Ryan. It's really not going to make any difference what I do because it's so, the scale. I would honestly say that the thing that ties everything together among your answers or among your questions is that scale is the ultimate problem. You guys have probably heard this cheesy story of all these starfish that were washed up on a beach. And they were drying up and dying, and this dude is picking them up, and he's throwing them back into the ocean. And this little kid comes up and is like, what are you doing? There's thousands of starfish. How can you possibly make a difference? And the guy bends down, picks another one up, throws it in, and says, I made a difference to that one. And if you think there's also a story from the gospel about this. When there's 99 sheep that are totally taken care of and fine, and there's one that's missing, that's what the shepherd goes and worries about, is that one, right? There is this tension in our life that there's only me. But the integrity of our actions, that's how anything ever happens, is people being like, all right, I'll do it. If I do it, will you do it? You'll do it too? Great, how about you, right? That's how any movement happens. We call this a Delta network because we decided that if we called it the Delta movement, it would sound too, like, revolutionary. But we might just switch it up because a network is boring. A movement is something you want to get into, right? So one is the scale and the sense, What Pope Leo says in the new encyclical Magnificat Humanitas, among other things, is don't buy this inevitability story that we're being told. Basically, hey, this thing's going to take over the world, just go lay down and wait for it to happen. It might be true, but I need to do what I can do today, right? I do think that the water consumption is a big deal, and here's what I would say. They're working on that too, of course. They're working on all of it. But when I hear a CEO or a C-suite executive say, I tell all my employees to use AI as much as they possibly can, that sounds insane to me. That sounds like saying, go try to use as much electricity in your house as you can. See how many lights you can turn on. If the room is dark and you need to turn the light on to read a book, turn the light on, right? But let's not just use it for the sake of using it. And to your point, I actually think that AI literacy is becoming, I worry that schools are too much obsessed with that. I'm going to have to teach everybody to learn AI. You know who's better at using AI than you and I are ever going to be? AI, right? So yeah, you got to be able to use it a little bit in productive settings. But to your point, your employer's probably going to teach you what you need to know on that front. You have to be like mildly literate and understand how it works and what it is. But then I would make sure that I'm focusing on the actual, they call them soft skills. I don't think they'll keep calling them. Last thing I'm going to say, and this gets back maybe to your original question about the role of the church. Mark Cuban said something. This is on some reel on LinkedIn that was taken out of context that I saw. But he called this phenomenon, which is a throwback reference for the people in the room. He called it the Milli Vanilli effect. Does anybody know who Milli Vanilli was? You do? How old are you? Okay. Wait, this happened before you were born, I'm pretty sure. Maybe well, whatever. I used to have, when I was in middle school, I had a cassette tape of Milli Vanilli. This 80s, 90s duo that had songs like Girl, You Know It's True, Blame It on the Rain. I'm trying to think of some of the other ones. And then this scandal came out that it turned out they were lip syncing all of it. You go to a Milli Vanilli show, they're not doing any of it. They didn't sing a word of it. And I believe you could actually send your tape back and like get a refund. And I was like, but I still love the music. I'm going to listen to it, right? Mark Cuban was saying, he called it the Milli Vanilli effect. And he said, I think what's going to happen, and this is, again, I actually think low-key good news. What's going to happen is AI is going to be so good at making fake stuff. Fake videos. But I actually saw a video yesterday of Trump saying maybe LeBron is a racist. I don't know if you heard this headline. I mean, okay. And my son, the same AI made it son, goes, that's probably AI, right? I hope it's AI, but it's probably not, to be honest with you. But the point is, this stuff is going to become so saturated with phony that the real, embodied, in-person experience is going to be valued more and more and more. It's going to become more sacred. And when we get to point number 3 here, it used to be that people came to rooms like this to do the stuff you guys are about to do that's fun and in person. And we fractured our society and atomized our neighborhoods and got to the point where we just all do it like this. I actually think it's borderline good news for the church and for people, for Christians, that people are going to start saying, this is all fake and I want the real. And our role can be to provide that and to meet those needs. I think that's the invitation we have. Okay, now I got to go pick up my kid or he'll be lost forever. Thank you, guys. I'll just put up if you did want to ask me a question later, that's some stuff we didn't have time for. That's my email address. You can always hit me on that. That's our website.